in a way, then do this for the running community or for people in general?
Yeah, so started running and I realized that I'm enjoying it so much for various reasons. I also realized that I was not able to live up to the potential, the amount of training that I was undergoing, the amount of hard work I was putting in, not being a natural, from childhood. I still thought that I wasn't being able to give it my best because there was some missing link. And as it turns out, it was nutrition. I didn't know the proper way to fuel myself, to hydrate myself through the training as well as on the race day, and of course fatigue management and recovery, etc. So since the passion for running was now full blown, and I wanted to remain in this field, I decided I was actually I trained earlier as a management graduate, and I was working with a bank for many years. But as it turns out, what destiny had in store was I did a complete U-turn and I went back to school because I wanted to understand all the nuances that went into the sport. And so wanted to sort of understand human metabolism, how it worked for an athlete vis-a-vis a normal person. And that's how I decided to go back to school, do another master's degree in nutrition, and armed with all that better information, a complete picture. I think I'll not only be able to help myself better, but also everyone else in the community. So yeah, that's about it in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. So when uh, this realization of that apart from the running training that we do, the mileage that we put, food
Yeah,
and nutrition is also important and necessary
yeah,
to be a better runner, to be a better athlete.
yeah.
Once now that you have the wherewithal and the knowledge that you have through your academic studies, for you personally, firstly, has it really helped?
Absolutely. So I think I have got my best runs, my best performances only after I understood the nuances of not just nutrition, but also, recovery, which involves, so there are various pillars to having a good run on we say that the race day, everything falls into place, but actually we need to work very hard during the training period for everything to fall into place. And then the running day is just, like any other, the race day is like any other run. So the importance of simple things that we sometimes ignore, like sleep, like, recovery, how much, not just carbohydrates, because runners are all about carbohydrates, but also how much protein to eat, and how to manage your stress better, whether we have all our blood markers in range, things like D3 and B12 and iron, they have a huge bearing on our VO2 max, on our running capacity, on our efficiency, on how much oxygen goes out into our blood and all of that. So yes, armed with all that knowledge, and now I realize that there are specific tools to manage fatigue, specific tools to manage recovery and performance. I think I have had a few of my best runs after that. So that's what I can tell you.
So cool. I mean, that's nice, and of course, I think that's what we will use. We will use your that knowledge that we have to discuss about a lot of things, because as you of course know that, and you yourself have run a comrade, that this is the time we all start training, right?
Yeah.
From February, from really Feb onwards, and right up to June, and
Mm,
hence the right kind of focus and training
mm,
on
mm,
food, nutrition, etc., is clearly
mm.
as important.
Yes.
And hence, and the training peaks, right? It kind of picks up now, and it peaks in March, April,
Mm.
May,
Yeah.
and a whole host of problems really start happening at that point in time. So, how should one, right, today, as we approach, as we have commenced our training for comrades, we have started doing the runs. We have, most of us have a long run next Sunday on at the Tata Ultra, and after
Mm.
that we'll have several long runs, a few more long runs of 50 plus. But through the course of the week as well, people run anywhere between 70 to 80 to 100 kilometers, right? What should be the approach? How should one, if someone comes you with an absolutely blank slate, what should one think about? Of course, we know and understand that nutrition is important, but what is it that one should think about through the course of this journey?
Yeah. So suppose, somebody is starting on a blank slate. So the one mistake that everybody makes is that when the training has started, that's when they start to think about body recomposition. Like, oh my, I think I'm overweight. I should shed a few kilos, and then my race will be better. But you've got to understand that once the training load starts, that's not a good time to cut back on fuel, because that is a recipe for injury, illness, etc. Because if you're not properly fueled and you go into any training session which is more than, say, 2 hours in length, there is a lot more that goes inside your body. Up to 1.5 hour a body can take without eating anything, because you have these stores, muscle glycogen stores in your body. But anything beyond that, you have to not only go properly fueled, but you have to keep fueling yourself as you go. So you do not think that now it's just the beginning of the training and therefore I don't really need to eat much, or let me just try and knock off a few kilos. It may work. I'm not saying you're going to get injured all the time, but I'm saying that's not the ideal approach to go by it. And at the same time, people, use their own formula, etc. And sometimes in the bargain, you sort of start losing very critical vitamins and minerals from your body, which are required for running. Like, you cut down on this category of food or that category of food, that will impact your zinc, your iron, your B12. So you don't realize that it has a cascading effect. So the foremost thing that you need to be careful about when you start off training is go into your runs properly fueled. By properly fueled, when you start a run, that doesn't mean you need to eat protein and fat and all. When you go into your training, you simply need to eat some carbohydrates and go. You need to drink some electrolytes and go 100%, because carbs and electrolytes go hand in hand. If your body has enough salt, then your carbohydrates will also act better. You'll be able to absorb them better. If you're not properly hydrated, by hydration I don't just mean plain water. You should never make the mistake of only going plain water. It should always be with electrolytes, especially if your run is more than 2 hours. So not only does it help in keeping your blood, plasma and everything all right, you basically avoids dehydration, and secondly, it helps you absorb your carbs better. So your fueling as you run also is more optimum.
So what you're saying is, now that we have started our training and we go into higher mileages,
Yeah,
the time to actually lose some weight is behind us. We should have ideally lost some weight before the training began, because now is the time when, because training and mileage kicks up, fueling needs to be better, one. And fueling also means that the intake of carbohydrates or the intake of electrolytes before workouts also needs to be appropriate.
absolutely.
Hydration does not mean only water. Hydration means electrolytes as well, which necessarily means keep sipping uh, Enerzal, ORS, or anything of that sort
Yeah.
on before your long mileages, and also at the time of the long mileages.
Yeah, during also. In fact,
During.
anything over 2 hours, you should 80% of the times be having electrolyte water, and only 20%, 20 to 30% of the times plain water. Because as you sweat, your plasma volume shrinks. As your plasma, where do you sweat from? The plasma, right? The blood, the watery part of our blood, that is what sweats out when we sweat, okay, to reduce our overall body temperature for thermoregulation. But as we sweat more and more, what happens is we keep losing water. So which means we keep losing, the blood content also reduces, and therefore the oxygen going into our working muscle will also reduce, because there's less blood to take that water, to take the nutrients, to take the oxygen to our working muscles. So it's important. Not only now, the other thing is, how if you overhydrate with only water, then water will move away from there and go into the cells, and the cells will start expanding. So that has those, when you feel dizziness, and sometimes we drink too much water and we tend to feel dizzy. So there has to be a proper balance between drinking not just plain water but also electrolytes
And
mixed with
and
it.
and and, and during the course of a run, electrolytes should be more than water in terms
Yes,
of body.
absolutely,
Understood.
absolutely, yes.
Okay, we also talk a lot about protein, right? How
Mm,
much protein should one have? How important is protein for recovery in this journey?
mm,
So
mm.
some thoughts and insights on that.
Okay, so I feel that we should first understand how many carbs, because carbs come first depending on the hours of running, and then we go to protein because protein helps for recovery. So like I said, for the first 1 hour, if you only have a moderate
And
run.
I don't mean about at the time of the run. What I mean is
Okay,
in the course of this
for
journey.
recovery.
In the
Yeah.
course of this journey, right, we keep talking about because of muscle weariness, we should have a sufficient intake of protein.
So
How
a
necessary and
typical,
important is that?
it's absolutely critical for recovery. If you want to have recovered properly for the next run, you need to, one of the pillars is protein. And unlike how we think that only bodybuilders need a lot of protein or people going to the gym need a lot of protein, in fact, ultra endurance runners need more protein than bodybuilders, which is on an average. Now, everybody is individual, and a different individual, it may actually turn out to be a little different for everyone, but on an average, the ballpark is 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. That's
For
what,
a day, every day.
yes, every
So,
single day.
so
Yes.
you're saying that if I weigh, for example, if I weigh
Mm.
70 kgs,
Mm.
then 1.6, so I need to have 112 grams of protein a day.
You're right, absolutely. And
It's a
that
lot.
should be in
Isn't that a
boluses
lot?
of, no, that's as much as is required for your recovery. So this is, in fact, like I said, ultra endurance athletes require more protein than bodybuilders, because we lose a lot of protein because we run such long distances that we lose a lot of muscle mass. And therefore, to enable recovery, 1.6 grams is required, and it should be also in boluses of at least 30 grams per meal for it to be, actually anabolic. Because people over 40, and I believe a lot of us are over
Yeah,
40 now.
most of the
Yeah.
at least endurance runners are above 40. Very few
Yeah.
of them will be younger.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you see, above 40, the need and the necessity is more to get
No,
in.
I'm saying the need for having a large amount of protein in one meal is more, like at least 30 grams in one meal is more, because a smaller bolus of protein, say 10 grams or so, will not be synthesized optimally. Our body loses, as we grow older, it loses the ability to absorb more protein from small boluses. So we need to have a large amount in one go. So when I say 100 grams, it should be divided into 30, 30, 35, or 35, 35, like that, not 10, 10, 10, 10 throughout the day. That is throwing away your protein.
And through in the course of the meals that we have,
Yeah.
whether we're vegetarian or non-vegetarian,
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible to have 100 grams of protein in a day. Whatever you eat, eggs you eat, dal,
Mm.
paneer or tofu or uh, chicken, fish, then it won't add up to 100 grams.
Yeah, unless you're a hardcore non-vegetarian and eat a lot of meat, it is very difficult for vegetarians, especially, to get it through food. So during this period, supplements play a very important role. Protein supplements, whether they are plant protein or whey protein. As whey protein is a little more efficient and very easily absorbed. Almost 100% of it is absorbed, whereas plant protein, you need to eat a little, in fact, a lot more than whey protein to get the same amount of protein inside your body. So yes, it is, unless you're really young, like I said, and it's very easy for you to synthesize protein. If you're older, and if you're a vegetarian, at least during the training period, you may want to experiment with a few protein shakes.
Hmm. Fair. So we spoke about electrolytes. We spoke about the
Yeah.
importance and the necessity of having proteins every day in the course of the training.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about carbs, right? Where you did
Sure.
mention, of course, carbs are important.
Yeah.
How important are they, and how do we avoid overdoing on carbs, right? Because carbs are generally good to eat,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it should not be overdone. And what are the carbs to avoid?
So, I'll give you a very simple mantra. You should eat complex carbs during the day away from the training and simple carbs around the training. So, when you're eating complex carbs, it's a little difficult to overdo on them because they are a little more satiating, they have more fiber. By complex carbs, I mean whole grains, legumes, these dal, rajma, pulses, these kind of things, and other whole grains like nachni, jowar, bajra. So many of them. Oats are there, and quinoa is there. So all of these things are complex in nature, which means they will break down slowly and they will not cause you spikes in blood sugar. So those are the ones you should be eating during the day. And when you're going out for a training, then you can, or a hard training. I mean, not just a 1 hour run. What I mean is that you're going for a long Sunday run or on race day, then you can look at things like, simple carbs like bread and bananas and dates and
Before
bagels
the
and
run.
muffins.
This is like before the run.
Yes, before the run. And as far as how much is required, if you have an hour's worth of training, a moderate run, you actually don't need to fuel. What you've eaten the previous day is sufficient.
Is sufficient.
But anything, yeah. So it's about, so initially it's about 30 grams an hour of carbs that you need in the first hour, which you already have from in your muscle glycogen. So you don't need to really fuel for it. Then up to 2 hours, up to 1.5 hour, you have the storage. But over 1.5 hour, you start needing about 60 grams. And if it's over 3 hours, then you need about 90 grams an hour. Now, it's very difficult to get 90 grams of protein in even our elite gels. Suppose everyone's eating those Univade elite gels, they have about 45 grams of carbs in them. So it's like eating them every half an hour. So that is a little difficult, number one. And also the body has a limited number of carriers for glucose. So it's not, even if you dump your body with a lot of glucose or a lot of carb sources, it's not that it's not going to be easy for it, for your gut to process it and then take it to where it is needed. Therefore, a lot of these new sports companies with sports drinks which are carb based, like Enerzal and all, and also Univade gels and all, they have a little bit of fructose component to it. So glucose and fructose, because they have different carriers. So you have a combination kind of a drink. Do some research on what suits you, because they have different carriers. You will be able to absorb a little bit more. So having said that, still getting 90 grams in on the race day is going to be very difficult per hour. So you need to start practicing from now itself. So do a little bit of gels, do maybe those little boiled potatoes, that you salted ones that you get in Comrades, do maybe bananas, dates. So you have to experiment with a lot of things and you have to actually do it. I know of people who have not done anything. No, I'm not going to have any of these. I'm only going to have dates during training. And then they go and have gels on the race day and they've just been puking away and their gut has acted up. So whatever you do, whatever supplements you take, whatever food you eat, you need to have practiced it for 1 or 2 months, not just 1 or 2 days.
So what you're suggesting is
Hmm.
that whatever you want to do on the race day in terms of
Yeah.
fueling,
Yeah.
especially on the Sunday long runs, you
Yeah.
should have be doing that for 2 to 3 months, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So and you definitely believe that gels are good to have and important
Yes.
because that is the easiest source of carbs
Yes.
and sugar that comes in together. And the
Yes.
other things that can be had, we will also, of course, talk about fueling on the race day. But the other
Hmm.
things that can and should be had during the Sunday long runs is you're suggesting a potato, probably a banana. Does banana make
Banana.
sense?
Yes.
During the run. This
Banana
is all about
during.
during
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
long
So,
runs.
yeah. Yeah.
Potato, banana, gels. Do dates help?
Dates. Yes.
Dates
Dates.
help.
So, 3 to 4 dates is about 20-25 grams of, 4 dates are about 20 grams of carbs. Yeah.
Understood. And so
Mm.
and And as a fueling strategy, something every hour, something every 40,
Yeah.
50 minutes, is that what you would recommend?
Yeah. So, like I said, after 2 hours, you will need 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. So, whether you will probably not be able to have them, in one go completely. So, you probably want to do them every half an hour, something now, then something after half an hour. So, yes, but you have to keep on eating. But there will come a point where you will probably not feel like eating more, or your body will not even be able to process more. But that is why it's important to train your body to process such a large amount of carbs going in during these long runs.
Understood. Understood. Fair. Okay, so we did speak about carbs. I want to talk a bit about how important are salt tabs or such kind of things during long runs. Are they worth it? Should one have them? Is it necessary?
Yeah, so I feel that salt is even more important than carbs. It is what is, the neuromuscular connection is through salt. So, Kashyap, a lot of us complain about cramps, right?
Yeah,
Muscle
yeah,
cramps
yeah.
during. There are two, three reasons for it. Two of the reasons out of the three reasons is lack of electrolytes and dehydration. I'll come to the third reason later. So, what I believe is that at least 1 gram per liter of water that you're consuming, 1 gram of salt is what you should be having. So, every hour, 1 gram of salt is required. So, if that salt tab has, say, 300 or 400 mg salt, then maybe two or three of those tablets together every hour. They are extremely important to maintain, but not just the salt, also the water. Then you drink plain water with it. Then you don't drink electrolyte water with it. So if you're drinking plain water and those salt, having two, three of those salt tablets, then you're maintaining the equilibrium homeostasis in your blood for you to give better performance. Because sodium, the salt, is what is directly, which gives signals to your brain to contract and relax, and that concentration should remain constant in our body. Otherwise, then it leads to muscle cramps because the signaling becomes an issue. The third thing also I'll mention here, which a lot of people are not able to get out of this muscle cramp syndrome. So it's also sometimes what happens is when you're very fatigued, then this connection, like I was talking about, between the muscle and the brain, it sort of breaks. You're so fatigued that instead of relaxing, the brain keeps giving signals to contract, 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 and that's when you get that muscle cramp. Now, how to overcome this? One, you have to very diligently train. If you have been training long distances in this horrible weather, then you ideally, if your training is to the point and you have been having proper fueling also with it, you should not be cramping. The other thing is conditioning of your muscles, no matter how much. So both, endurance conditioning as well as strength conditioning. So you may be doing your runs properly, but if your muscles are not strong enough, again they will give way, because Comrades is a very long run. So you should have proper muscle conditioning also. All these things together can sometimes lead to very debilitating cramps otherwise.
Understood. Fair point. Sunanda, let us talk a bit about sleep,
Hmm.
right? How valuable and important is sleep in the whole process and this whole journey, right? Because as we train harder and longer hours, what ends up getting compromised generally is sleep.
Yeah.
So what do you got to advise there? I mean, what would you like to?
I know it's very hard to do, especially with people who have demanding jobs. They come back from work late, and then if you have to get in a 30K, you have to wake up at some ungodly hour in the morning. But if I'm just saying that, if you can, I understand that on a Saturday night, you probably will never be able to manage to get more than 6 hours or so of sleep. But on the other days, all the other days, if you can manage, I'm saying if you can manage 8 hours, that is optimal, best, but not less than 7 hours. I know eight will be a far cry for many people. You will have to make a lot of sacrifices going out and all. Family will be on your head and everything, but you will start having to sleep earlier, because considering the weather that we have in this time, we cannot wake up late and go out for a run late. So start sleeping earlier. aim for at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep through the week, and then maybe that one Saturday night, if your sleep is a little shorter, you'll be fine. If you are able to optimize sleep, you will yourself see a huge difference in the way you feel the next day. You won't be groggy, tired, fatigued, because slowly the fatigue will start building up. And one of the most powerful recovery tools is sleep. So
Mm,
if you can manage to sleep, especially the nighttime sleep, I know if you can't, of course, you can sleep in the day on a Sunday, on a Saturday. If you can manage that, that is all bonus. But the deep sleep that you get between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., that is the most rejuvenating of all sleeps. So I mean, ideally, everyone should try going to bed by 10. I mean, how much you can manage now, to each his own. But sleep
mm,
is the cornerstone of recovery, yes.
mm. So that's helpful, valuable. I mean, we have been in, I think, most conversations reiterating that sleep is necessary and important.
Mm.
While 8 hours seems could be a luxury for a lot of us, but clearly
Yeah.
being conscious about that 7 hours is necessary, important. Uh, I think we just got to arrange or rearrange our day appropriately, right? Because most of us get up 4:35, and then if you that means you got to sleep by 9:30, 10
Yeah.
regularly every day to be going, right? Sunanda, as you know, and you've been through this journey once. While in March we are all excited, we are all kicked into the training, but come May, there is a
Yeah.
certain amount of fatigue that builds in because
Yeah.
we've done a lot of training. There is a lot of focus has gone into it so far. There is a mental fatigue, and
Yeah.
there is at times a physical fatigue as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and it happens. It's human. It happens. How do you think uh, through nutrition? Uh,
Mm.
is there something that we can do to kind of address this fatigue part, which actually builds up in the last month?
So there are 5 or 6 things that will help you in recovery, in sort of managing this fatigue. What we call one is, of course, we just spoke about, is if you have your sleep on point, that will go a long way in helping you. Secondly, protein we spoke about. If you manage to get 1.6 grams or 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, that should hasten your recovery. Your recovery will be much quicker. Third, you need to keep an eye on your D3 levels, because D3 and B12, both of these vitamins together play a huge role in your muscle fatigue. Okay, so you need to keep an eye on these two levels. So sometimes when we've been running so much, we've been depleting our resources also. So maybe it's a good idea to get these vitamins checked somewhere in between your training and see if you're falling low in any one of them. So you need to quickly, supplement with them to get it on, and you instantly feel better. And especially for the women athletes, I would say, iron is a big concern. We lose a lot of iron. So, and iron, as hemoglobin is iron. And then unless that oxygen reaches the muscles, you are not able to sustain that aerobic training for too long, right? So in order for your hemoglobin to remain high, your iron levels have to remain high. So women especially, most of the men are actually fine on their iron levels, but women need to keep a close eye on the iron levels as well. And then do not skimp on eating. One very important point is, as we all know now, the anabolic window for protein doesn't have to be immediately half an hour after training. It doesn't even have to be 1 or 2 hours after training. It can be equally spread throughout the day. Even if you have it properly throughout the day, it's fine. But carbohydrates, because our muscles have about a limited capacity to store carbohydrates. It's not unlimited. Like fat is unlimited, you can keep eating and you can keep depositing fat, but carbohydrates are limited. And it is now a well proven fact that within the first hour after a hard training, if you have to replenish yourself with at least 1 gram per kilogram of body weight worth of carbohydrates in order for the glycogen to quickly get restored. So if your glycogen stores are full all the time, the probability of you getting fatigued, physically fatigued, is much lower if everything else is all right. So unlike protein, where the anabolic window, there's no anabolic window, you can have it anytime in the day after exercise. Carbohydrates definitely should be replenished within the first hour after training. And in fact, the impact goes down dramatically even 2 hours after training. If you wait for 2 hours still having, so even if you're outside and you go directly for breakfast, your whatever it is, your idli, your dosa, your chocolate milkshake, your sandwich. So if you're a 60-kilo person, then 60 grams of carbohydrates you need to have within the first hour, so that your muscle glycogen stores are replenished and you're ready for the next bout of training and you're not fatigued when you get there.
Yeah, that's interesting and important, I guess. Replenishing carbs immediately in the first hour of hard training, right? And I think probably a lot of us do that, and a lot of us don't as well. So that's valuable, and yeah, you did mention about women, right? So all that we spoke about, is there anything different and extra that we need to do for women athletes?
Yeah, like I said, in terms of protein and all, no. So since they are smaller, of course, their overall 1.6% of body per kilogram of body weight will overall be less, but the standards are absolutely the same. The only thing where women score a little under men are because every month they lose a lot of iron because of their, the way biologically they are made. And so their iron levels, hemoglobin levels are low, and that is a big debilitating factor sometimes for them in long distance running, etc. So if they can little bit keep their iron levels in check, and if they are low, in fact I would suggest all athletes to check their D3, B12 and iron levels now, so that you have enough time to build up the reserves going into the race. So these three are very critical for you right now, and especially for women. And if it's very difficult if you're a vegetarian to get iron from your diet, especially if you're an athlete. For a normal person, we can still work around a lot of little things and slowly build it up, but you need it to build up quickly. So the only other resources then to take iron capsules, supplements.
Understood. Fair. Another thing I wanted to explicitly ask is the weather, right? We train in tough weather, and of course that ends up helping us at Comrades. But when we're training in this tough weather, especially in cities like Bombay, where you actually sweat a lot because the humidity is very high, is there anything different that you would want everyone to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens in cities like Mumbai is that it gets so humid that we sweat a lot, but that sweat doesn't evaporate. So on the one hand, we are losing water from our body, and on the other hand, we are not even cooling down. And when we are not cooling down, and when the blood plasma level falls and the blood flow is not going to the skin is not evaporating, our core temperature actually keeps going up rather than coming down, even when we are sweating. So in Bombay, in cities like Bombay, where it's more humid, it's even more important to drink more electrolytes, drink more water. If you're having your salt tabs, drink enough water. So I would recommend that every 15 to 20 minutes you should have at least 100 to 150 to 200 ml of water. And you can alternate, when you're having every 15-20 minutes, alternate between electrolytes and plain water. But yes, it's very important. And also, if you're a salty sweater, some people don't sweat water so much as you'll see salt deposits and all on your body, on your face, then you know that you're actually losing a lot of salt. If it's showing on your body, it means you're losing a lot of salt. So basically, every person is different. You need to do your sweat analysis. And the simplest way to do it is just when you go out for a run, your regular run, just weigh yourself after going to the loo, weigh yourself before going to the run. And then if you don't drink any water and come back and weigh yourself again, the difference in weight is usually the water and the salt that you've lost. So that typically you need to drink about 1.5 liters of electrolyte water for every 1 liter or 1 kg loss in weight as sweat. Yeah. To replenish.
Fair.
I know that's a lot of information, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of information for people to process.
Yes.
But I guess there is a lot to take away as well. Let us talk quickly, also talk about the race day, right? You've been there once, you've experienced it.
Yeah.
Uh, right from the time we get up, right? This time the run is going to start from Durban. Most of us stay in Durban, so we have a couple of more hours to sleep. Assuming on the assumption that we wake up around 3 o'clock.
Hmm.
And of course, you have up to 5 o'clock in the evenings, almost like 14 hours of the day before the race kind of largely ends. Uh, what's your advice? What should one think about? What should one do?
So from the moment you land there, which is typically on a Thursday for most people, right? You start. It doesn't just start on the race day. It starts from then. You start your electrolyte loading and your carb loading. So you start drinking at least a liter of electrolyte water every day from Thursday, and then you start loading onto carbs, which means because you're going for such a long ultra endurance run, you need at least 8 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight of carbs in the carb loading period. So 10 grams for, it's a lot of carbs. So you should be able to process that much. Also your body should be able to process that much, but try to increase your carbs every day. That is your carb loadings, typical carb loading that you do, which consists of wheat and rice and pasta and potatoes and just all kinds of any carbs. So there's no restriction on the kind of carbs on the days leading up to the race. Even simple carbs, complex carbs are fine. Now on the race day, again, you should try to get into the race hyperhydrated. So that by hyperhydrated, I mean that you drink a lot of salt water before getting into the race, so your plasma volume swells. So it takes a longer time, much longer time, for you to reach that fatigue, that level where you've lost your, and then of course you keep replenishing that. Now number one is that. Number two is you have a about 1.5 grams per kilogram body weight. So maybe about 50-60 grams of carbs in the morning, 2-3 hours prior. Because don't have it very close to the race, because then you will just end up throwing up. So maybe 2-3 hours prior to the race, you have a good carb rich heavy meal. And then again, closer to the time you're starting, maybe just carry a banana with you or a few dates with you. So 10 minutes before the start, just do that for that last bit of thing. Or even those gummies, or a little, some people like a gel, but I'm just saying, if you don't want to overdo on the gels, because you will need gels during the run, have something natural to eat before that. And yeah,
Then of
that's
course
about the loading.
through the run,
Yeah.
as you said, every 40-45 minutes, keep
Yes.
eating something,
Yes.
adequately keep sipping electrolytes, take
Yes.
salt tabs at a certain frequency,
Yeah.
feed on potatoes, bananas, which are of course available
Yes.
there. Yeah, dates, you got to carry your own dates and your own gels. Is Comrades also, as you know and remember, offers the drink soda, right? The cold, which is cold and a lot of sugar, and the Coke. Does that help?
Mm. So you should try
Instant
and
sugar.
limit that.
Uh,
Limit that. I'll tell you why. You can have it beach mein just for a change of taste, and a little bit of fizz makes you feel better. One, that fizz may cause a GI distress in people, in some people, because you've already been eating so much and your body's processing so much. So that gas can cause some GI distress. And secondly, it's too high in sugar.
yeah.
So that sort of creates an imbalance in your blood. And then again, what will happen is, it's a bit technical. Water flows where there's a high concentration of solute from a low concentration. So basically, either your blood plasma will get affected, or your cells will get affected. So either you'll start feeling dizzy, or you'll start feeling
So
nauseatic. So
but have it a little less.
yes, just for a little change, just to give it a little boost. That's it. It's not that Coke is going to help you better than your gels and all. It's
Electrolytes
all
or
very mental,
okay,
yeah.
understood.
So yeah.
Fair. One more point. So through this course of now next 3 to 4 months, what are the kind of foods or absolutely avoid in your opinion?
The
Something that
kind of food,
you should absolutely stay away from.
yeah.
Just to ensure
So
that the body composition does not deteriorate, You
Yeah.
don't unnecessarily add weight, etc., etc.
So stay away from the typical fried food, the packet food, the desserts. Once in a while you can, after your once in a while is okay, but I think fried food you should completely cut out. Desserts you should absolutely limit. Alcohol should go out of the window for these 3-4 months at least, because it'll affect your recovery. It'll affect your muscle protein synthesis. It will affect everything, even your carb in your utilization of carbs. So all of that. So these three things, if you can manage: fried food, desserts, and alcohol, then that should go a long way in helping you maintain a good body composition.
Okay. So this was good stuff, Sunanda. Good information. I think now what we'll do is we'll just open up the floor for
Sure.
questions. Guys, feel free to ask whatever you got to ask. Either you ask or you can put it on the chat. There are already a couple of questions on chat which I will ask you, Sunanda, so you can
Okay,
answer
sure.
them.
Sure.
Right. So Sharad has asked, after running, what carbs to have.
Yeah, so after running, you can have, if you're a non-vegetarian, you can have a chicken sandwich. So that'll take care of both your protein and carb needs. Otherwise, you can have a chocolate milkshake. You can have a vegetarian sandwich. You can have a roll, an egg roll. The options are many. Even a chapati with some bhaji inside, anything rolled in that. A cheese sandwich is also fine. So basically, a
Idli,
carb
dosa.
rich.
Most of us
Idli,
end up having idli,
dosa.
dosa.
Idli dosa, yeah, yeah, absolutely fine. No, but try not to eat dosas drenched in butter and oil and all. But idli dosas, yeah, all of them are fine. Upma is fine. Poha is fine. So, or any kind of carbs after the run, yeah, for immediately for replenishment.
Understood. Any specific advice on carbs and any specific advice for runners who are diabetic?
Yeah, so you have to be very careful because if you're, especially if you're taking medication. So look, exercise acts like insulin. So we have to understand that if you're going out, so the same effect that insulin has, that is, it takes your blood, your sugar away from the blood and takes it to the cells. The same effect exercise has. So if you've had your medicine beforehand, and then you're having something, and then you again exercising, so it's like a double insulin effect. So that may lead to hypoglycemia, which means very low blood sugar. You may feel dizzy, you may faint, and all of that. So please connect with your doctor. And ideally, what diabetic runners or athletes do is they usually titrate their dose before the race or before the training. They have less of it or they don't have it, depending on the level that you're having, because exercise itself acts massively like insulin. So you should be able to have your regular carbs, but then you have to take care of your medicine, the dose of your medicine, so that you don't go into that low blood sugar mode.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Understood. You mentioned about a few blood tests to know your B3, D12. So
Yeah. So
what is important to know, before, when as we
yeah.
get into this long intense training period of 4-5 months?
Yeah, for from your, if you're healthy otherwise, then just for the athletic performance point of view, you need to get your D3, B12, iron levels. That's about it. That's all you need to know. Iron, so you can do ferritin and CBC both. So in CBC, you'll get your hemoglobin, and then D3, B12, and ferritin separately. That's about it.
Okay. Havi is asking, dates laced with salt, do they help during the run,
Yeah.
especially?
Yes, absolutely they do, because like I said, there are carriers in our blood which absorb glucose, and the glucose and salt ka carrier is the same. And if you have salt with it, then they have even more affinity to absorb glucose. So that is why I've been harping on the fact that salt is very important, because it will help you absorb your carbs also better. So yes, dates with salt are a great option.
Hmm. Sharad is asking about protein scoop. I mean, he's asking, can we have the whey protein or the pea protein, whichever form of protein we are taking, a supplement twice a day? That should be
Of
okay, right?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Morning, evening is no problem.
I think that the operating point here is that if it is 1.6 grams of protein per body weight, which for most of us is more than 100 grams, I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
without protein supplements, it's possible to have 100 grams of protein.
Yeah, it's very
For most of
difficult.
us, it's like, I don't think that's possible, right? So,
Yeah, and it's not gonna, unlike, it's a myth that it's gonna harm your bones or your kidneys, nothing like that. If you have healthy kidneys, you're otherwise healthy, you don't have any other issues, there is absolutely no harm. It's absolutely safe to take whey protein or pea protein twice a day.
understood. Does being off sugar
Hmm.
help?
Yeah, it does help actually with your body composition. You don't have to have, so what, like I said, during the week, you just have complex carbs. The only time you are allowed to have a simple carb is sugar only, okay? So only time you can do that is around your training. So when you're about to go into your training or during your training or just immediately after training, all that will get synthesized, will get absorbed again in your muscle glycogen. But throughout the week, please refrain from having sugar, excess sugar. I mean,
Understood. Fair.
yeah.
Sandeep is asking, do fruits like watermelon and orange help during the training? I'm presuming he means during the training, not during the training period.
So orange and watermelon have a bit of potassium, and that is their only benefit. If you're asking from the carbohydrate point of view, fuel point of view, they will not give you any benefit because they're largely fructose, and fructose is very limitedly absorbed, and then it has to be converted to glucose. So
Understood. A lot of people also talk about caffeine as a booster during runs.
caffeine
He
is one of the most researched supplements, and yes, it does give a lot of stimulation. It is proven to improve your performance, but then again, the dosage is different for different people depending upon their weight, height, and all. So if you overdo on caffeine, that also becomes detrimental. So you have to find the right dose, but it is definitely a big performance enhancer.
and this is even during a training. When I'm doing a long run, the only way I can take caffeine is through a gel, right? I mean, I really can't sip a black coffee during a run.
So your black coffee can happen before the run, and your during the run can be your caffeine gels or the caffeine gummies or caffeine tablets or anything. But again, the dose, like I'm reiterating, the dose is very important. And yes, during training as well as in the race day. But also one more thing, your body tends to get used to a certain supplement also. So before the race, I mean, if you give it a washout period of 10 odd days, then it'll help you better on, it'll serve you better on the race day.
So you mean when you say washout period is stop having any
Yeah.
caffeine 10-12 days into the race. So
Yeah.
so like if the race is on 9th June, from 25th, 27th May onwards, just have no caffeine, no tea, no sugar, no coffee, no caffeine in any form.
No chocolate also.
Yeah, no chocolate also. Wow, that's a
Yeah.
tough one. No caffeine, but I'm sure it is helpful in
It'll
the
just
race.
help you. It's not that if you don't do it, it won't help you, but it'll help you more if you.
Yeah. I understand. How much
Mm.
Hari is asking, how much salt to be taken if you're anyway using electrolyte fluids during a run?
Salt tablet, he means. Yeah. So if you're having electrolyte fluids constantly, you don't need a salt tab really, unless you're a very heavy sweater or you're a salty sweater, then you need to figure out, then, like I said, this is very individual. But normally
I agree. Yeah,
yeah, for average people, if you're constantly sipping on an electrolyte drink, you may not need to have a salt tab.
fair. When do we next see you at Comrades?
Very soon. When is your 10th?
10th for me, 26.
Okay, well, let me see. I'm going to try and be there on your 10th for you.
Okay, nice. I'll wait.
Yeah.
So, okay, we have one more question from Sharad. He says he's 50 years old and long distance running, of course, causes muscle wasting. I mean,
Yeah.
he means wearing of muscles, probably.
No, he's
Any
right. Muscle wasting is a term.
Okay, what does that mean?
It just which means what you said.
Huh,
The wearing down of, so he losing muscle mass
huh,
basically.
yeah. So
Hmm.
what should one do?
So strength training and
Strength
and
training.
1.6 grams of protein. You have
Yeah.
to have enough protein. Strength training without protein, protein without strength training, both are not optimum. So you need
And
to do
yeah,
both.
when you refer to strength training, you mean actual gymming strength training, right? That
Yeah.
kind of strength training,
And
which is
one
as
more thing I'd
important
like
and
to say.
valuable for apart from mileage.
Yeah. Now, having said that, there still will be some muscle wastage because I mean, the runs that we do are such long distance runs that it's impossible only to, the body does start breaking down a little bit of muscle. So, ideally, when you're in the off season, you should spend more time. When you're not running so much, you should spend more time building your muscles in the gym or even where calisthenics or whatever is your poison, but you should spend more time in the off season. During season also, for maintenance, you should go to the gym. You may not put on any muscle, but you will at least avoid losing too much muscle then.
Hmm. Okay, we have one question from Anup who's asking views on carnitine and glutamine.
So carnitine, I would say avoid. What carnitine claims to do, caffeine does much better. And glutamine, yes, when you're under extremely stressful situations. So glutamine is a conditionally essential amino acid. So which means it becomes essential only in certain conditions of, suppose you've had an accident or you had a surgery. So when your training intensity really peaks up, during, say, when your 60-kilometer runs or your 65-kilometer runs, then glutamine is a very good tool to have for recovery. So you can add that to your whey protein shake and have it. In your peak training period, when you're training really tough, then you can add glutamine in your diet.
Fine. I mean, thanks, Sunanda. It has been excellent.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of information. Let me just try and summarize quickly
Sure.
as to what we spoke about. Uh, the period of actually losing weight is behind us. During this period of long runs and training, you really should not be focusing on losing weight because fueling is important. Point one, 1.6 gram of protein for every kilo of body weight that you have on a daily basis, which necessarily means almost 100 grams plus for everyone. That is not really possible only with natural foods and especially for vegetarians. So, supplement protein is important and is necessary. Protein can be had through the day. At the same time, carbs, which is something also as necessary. Complex carbs, otherwise, but during the time of especially long training runs, you can have simple carbs, but otherwise, complex carbs is what you should focus on. During runs, electrolytes are very important, along with water. Electrolytes, the composition of sipping electrolytes has to be a lot more than sipping water. Have something every 45 to 50 minutes during long runs. Caffeine is a good boost, especially during long training, but one should not overdo it, of course. Sleep as important, or probably more important, especially because we have 4 5 months of intense training to go. 7 to 8 hours of sleep is what we should aspire and target for. Uh, what else did we? Yeah, I mean, largely we kind of
Yeah, I
have
kind
kind
of
of
covered it.
covered it. So great. Thank you, Sunanda, for doing this for us. For everyone who's there and who would watch this, Sunanda also has an Instagram handle called NutriFit with Sue, where she keeps dishing out such simple advice, which is very valuable and something that we all can follow. So thank you for being there, guys, and once again, thank you, Sunanda. Good luck for your Delhi. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And good luck to you all as well, all of you doing Tata Ultra next week.
Thank you, and we'll see you on the road.
And absolutely.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks.